need orders. This is 5 of us here. Roll call, Mr. Trudell, Mr. Paulson, Mr. Camarano, and Ms. Pickens are currently not in attendance. All the other members are here. Yes.
I just was waving at Bonnie.
Oh, okay. Citizens' participation, the first item. I think we have some.
Sit here.
Pardon?
Do I sit here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Identify yourself.
I'm by myself, right?
Identify yourself.
Okay. I'm Susan Ricky Asone, and I'm chairman of community events.
Welcome.
And the purpose for me coming this evening is we had a meeting this past week. We have deadlines on our applications, but one of the things that came to our forefront was something that we thought maybe we could discuss with the finance committee, only because it has to do with what we consider probably public improvements. And I don't know, the town, we all are aware, the town has limited cash. Nobody disputes that. And we do have a fund, and it went through the legislature that a certain percentage of the hotel, motel, and parking and the parking receipts come into the community events fund for distribution. And one of the things that we did find out, because of the lack of the hotels that are closing, the bed and breakfast and things like that, we're having more limited funds coming into our account. So we had heard at the beginning of the year that they were working on a project similar to other communities for parking, the kiosks and things like that. And it would involve, a capital investment, so to speak. But the purpose of me coming here is because one of our articles gives us puts $25,000 into the account, and we were thinking because it would be public improvements, and I have to go to my committee and share it with them, we thought maybe we could help sponsor, this project, because it's a no-brainer. I mean, communities like Wells, Portsmouth, Newburyport, they all have these, as close by as Plymouth, all have these kiosks, and the money comes back into the community, and we thought this would be great. And since the town doesn't seem to have the ready cash to do it, we thought if we went through our program, that probably we could participate in this and maybe scale it down a little bit. I just picked up, I did research today, only because when I heard that it wasn't going through, I did some research, and I found out that there was a study done. They do know where they could, if it could probably be divided up a little bit. Maybe we couldn't do the whole program, but we could do part of the program. And if we as a committee, because it's money that comes back into the community, if it's we as a committee could set aside X number of dollars, i.e. probably the $25,000 that is going to be voted at a town meeting under our particular article. We already have some funds into this account. We've been very cautious about how we distributed this money, and we've told people we're scaling back, these nonprofit organizations, that we're scaling back because we need to have some kind of a revenue stream, and the revenue stream really would be, something that we would get probably from the kiosk, and to enhance, even if it's on Superior, or there's a lot of activities and events going on. So I was coming here because I didn't know what direction to go. It came up suddenly, and I have to commend Bonnie for her involvement with our committee, because she's been with us probably for 3 years. She's been a very good representative, and I hope she continues on with our committee, because she's a regular member and attends all the meetings, and we depend on her to give us feedback about the finance committee and what they would like to see us do. So I really think this is something that would be very worthwhile. I don't know how it can be considered, if it can become a line item, if it could be put into the request, or whatever the case may be. But if we could piggyback somehow with these community events funds and do it partially this year and then probably some more next year, and I'm sure with this economy, I think that they would probably agree to some kind of a payment plan even, because people are looking forward to, you know, moving communities forward, and it would be a good revenue stream, because the past few years, we distributed, and it'll show you how things have changed, because in 2009, we distributed $35,000. In 2010, we distributed $53,000. And in 2011, we distributed $44,000. But we didn't use all our money because we started to be very careful. And it was only for promoting and advertising. But part of this, and this went through the legislature, that this was the bill that went through the legislature, and we could get involved with property improvements. I did get a letter of request within the deadline from the police department to please accept this memo as a request for $35,000 to be used for an important parking improvement program on Onset Pier. In addition, funds may be used for other parking-related improvements in the Onset area to enhance tourism. That's the key. I will make myself available at any time to discuss these critical public improvements. Thank you in advance for your consideration. So I think because we know we don't have anything else to draw upon, this seems like a very, very important option. If we can take the money we get back from the state, put it back into the town to generate the revenue that we need. And some communities are really, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, you know, I mean, your numbers people. And you can see what it would really be a very important, you know, program if we could see it get underway. So
That request was from who?
this request came from the Wareham Police Department.
Sorry.
Good thing you didn't make that announcement.
Yeah, it's a good thing I didn't make the announcement. Isn't it?
I thought it was mine for a minute. I knew I put it on silent.
With the phone jar.
I'm using the first one to know about that, right?
No, but anybody can apply for it, but this involves, you know, public improvements. We're doing an outreach also to the Upper Cape Regional High School for signage, because we figure we invest so much money and we give them so much money, let's get something back rather than spending money on this, you know, the wood signs and things like the welcome, the squares and different things like that. So a lot of us, you know, being volunteers, we network and try to get as many resources in our direction as possible. So, you know, we're excited. We're a very good committee, and we're very dedicated to making things improve. I know that there was some concern that with these kiosks that maybe we would be getting more revenue because of this this particular article, but it's not something that can't be adjusted along the way. And if the money comes into the town, better it should come into Wareham than somewhere else. And that's basically, we have the tourists come all over. We have 54 miles of shoreline, we all know that. We have several beaches, and we can use, you know, enhanced parking up by, I live in Onset myself, and not only the pier, we have up behind C.W. Bishop area, we have Heinz Field, we have, you know, Swift's Beach. Maybe they can enhance some of the other parking areas, and it's really good money that would come in from out-of-towners, from tourists, better in our pocket.
Right. I'm sorry, before I interrupted myself with my phone, the letter that you had,
Yes.
was that a letter to you from?
This is a letter to the Community Events Committee, yes.
From
And
who?
From Chief Stanley,
Right.
yeah. And I'd be glad to give you a copy of this.
I think the parking what falls under his jurisdiction,
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
That's-
Your
Public
collection
safety.
set up for him.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
just, Mr. Chairman. It became a concern to me, the CEC has been doing a great deal of discussion in the last couple of months on this particular project. And with budgetary cuts coming and things of that nature, it became a concern to me that it's something that's going to get lost. And I had talked to them about it, and the idea was that it's a plus for the community events committee, it's a plus for the whole community to get a revenue flow going. And if they can provide the startup capital to do it, I think it's a great idea. I do have some concerns of talking to legal as far as it is a capital expense, and how does that work out where a particular committee is authorized to make this purchase. I don't know how that works. But it would be something that could be saved and, capital spent elsewhere through the, by the town, or budget adjustments. It's in one answer.
Let me interject for 1 minute, because you brought up the good point. You're gonna, a copy of this letter went to Mark Andrews, Town Administrator, the Board of Selectmen, and Rich Bowen, who's Town Council. So he wanted to bring, just to make sure, I'm assuming, in this, I didn't discuss, that part, but I just thought that, it's wise that, we cover all our bases, because we are bound by this legislative, rule. And as I said, a lot of the other communities, I know, I was over at Plymouth and I talked to one of the vendors, and they said this is the best thing that happened to us, because they come in and they go out and they have to pay, and it's very little. It's easy money. It's easy money.
What was that number that you put on there?
For what?
For the cost?
35,000.
35,000.
Did we, Mr. Chairman, when we originally looked at this project, it was 75, but it included, other than onset, there were several.
Other than the pier, the original one that came to us last year.
Right, this is the report here that I picked up.
Right, the one that came to us last year was for $35,000. That was a request to take it out of the emergency funds, which we didn't allow because it was out of the emergency funds. Then the most recent request that they were talking about in capital planning meetings included an engineering study in other areas. They were looking at the pier plus the upper lot.
Right.
All right, plus there's another lot that's further down that's owned by the town. And they were talking about doing some items with that. That's why the price tag escalated up to the 75. All right, this request basically would cover the pier.
Right, and we have events going on in the summer. Let me tell you, parking for the triathlon, just for the people that are participating in it alone is a pain in the rear end. And you got other events that are going on, and I don't know if it'll change everything, but it would take it's less labor intensive on our part. We don't, and I'm not sure if we're paying the people working at the pier or we're.
No, it's my understanding that last year those were all volunteers, isn't that what you
Tax write-off, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, but again, the one thing that has concerned me from the start is it's great to put in a revenue stream, but if you don't have the procedures in place to collect and how to handle that money, you run into additional problems. So, I think that's something, it's a good idea. It just needs to be completed all the way through the process. That's the thing.
One of the things I might interject is, I knew the project was a lot more involved, and I said, why can't we take baby steps? If we just do something, to start to see if it works. I mean, that's, let's crawl before we walk, and before we run. And I think that we have such a focus in Onset Pier with all the events. As I said, this year we've already got requests for almost, let me see, I think it was almost $37,000 for assistance. We may have to back down on some of them, because it seems to me if we get the 25,000, plus we have to probably come up with another 10 if the finance committee says this is a worthwhile, project. We could probably do that, because a lot of these nonprofits, they have checkbook balances that are pretty healthy, some of them. And I've been hearing this, and doing public improvements. We're at the point in time in this particular community events project, we're in the position now where we can start doing public improvements that attracts tourism too. And that, that's, as I said, it's found money.
Sam?
I like the idea very much, in general, I'm concerned about a couple of things, I guess. One of them, I just don't know, but I know that the total that was asked for before was 75,000. The other 40,000 were adjacent lots, were they?
Yes, plus an engineering study. Correct, Alan, if we may. Alan, since you're here, if you would. In capital planning, 75,000 that was discussed for parking.
I'm sorry.
The parking project, the capital project that was included in the budget was $75,000 for the parking at Onset Pier, in Onset, basically.
Onset Pier, period.
That was Onset, all right, originally it was 35, went to 75.
My understanding was the 75 was for Onset Pier. That's what appeared on our application.
Was there an engineering study that
Yeah.
suddenly was
That's
put in
all.
there?
It's not engineering studies, it was all part of one project. Would be, that they would come in and do the whole thing, set it up, it would be the computer system, it would be set up so they would be able to, track everything. It would generate out, I'm not sure how many little kiosks would be, whether it be 1, 3, or 4. We never get the details, because each one of those little units is like usually $25,000. Because it's all computer run, it's all tied into a central system. Because it could take credit cards, the whole thing.
Right, but you wouldn't need more than one for the
Well-
onset pier, would you not?
Right, that's exactly what they called for, and they said the initial startup cost was $36,000.
Well,
The
this-
monthly fees were roughly $55 per month, in season, 35 off season. Fees needed to be paid to credit card companies. But it shows on this particular, and, I'd be glad to have copies made and distributed, for your, your review, but there were 3, apparently, or 4 in the onset, on the onset pier. But when I talked to them about this, because today I started questioning about this, because it came up so quickly, that they said they could get away with 2. So, I mean, if you scale back and you have something, it will probably be very, worthwhile pursuing.
I really need a lot more detail. I'm not sure what the chief's request is, but if we could get a copy of that, and then,
Be happy
Actually-
to do that.
These also, just so you understand, the older units, as Frank knows, we were told at the MMA meeting, they have to be MDA compliant now. So it's a different unit, and the price was quoted originally is probably a little different than it is now, probably higher, since it requires a newer system. In other words, that's handicap. Someone with a wheelchair or something actually would get up to the unit and actually make it work, which costs more money.
More money to make it lower?
The $75,000 was basically including the cost that the police department charged back to the town to process the tickets, et cetera.
but that was also 40,000 higher than what was originally requested last year. That's why the confusion, I think.
I think FinCom had 2 different numbers. The capital planning committee said one number only, 75. The only number that was ever given to us.
In this letter here,
We never had a plan.
Because we had a number for 35.
We never got it.
So I need to settle that discrepancy.
Yeah, a year ago, the capital planning never saw the parking program at all. It just came up when the town administrators, submitted the capital plan. I think he discussed it with the FinCom, he never discussed it
It
with.
started out with us and then it went to you.
Yeah, we never got it until after the fact, and it was one figure,
Okay.
75.
There's some details I gotta straighten out with the TA, because I think there's more than on that.
and I think the chief indicated that, whoever's working on this program is very happy to come, and at least they told us this, they'd be happy to come and answer, questions, because one of my favorite sayings, 2 people equally informed seldom disagree.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Dick?
I have 2 questions. What happened to the parking lot up by Hammond School? That's a big parking lot.
That's what I thought was included
Yeah,
in
I did
this
too.
$75,000.
That's a much bigger one.
Yeah.
That's what I have to find out. Like I said,
Right.
originally 35 came to us. That was for Onset Pier. As
Yeah.
Alan said, it was at capital planning, it was at 75. A lot of conversations went on as to how much parking there would be and where it would be. There was discussions about Onset Pier, the Hammond School lot, and also there's a lot further down. We need a shuttle to get people over as well. It's unpaved at this point. So all those things got went in and out of the conversation several times. I don't know what was in the 35, I don't know what's in the 75. I find that it's interesting, the request now is for 35 from the police department. That may be solely the pier, it may not be, we'd have to go back and get more detail. Well, they'd have to go back and get more detail. This actually isn't gonna be in our hands, because the first thing is it has to go through legal to find out, can we take these funds and apply them as the committee is suggesting. I think it's a great idea. I would surely hope that you would be able to do it. I think the dating is a great idea, paying it over time, because then you pay it out of revenue.
Right.
I mean, the right pieces are there. The question is how do we fit it into a municipal program, which is always a problem. Dick?
Well, I just wanted to continue. As I think everybody here knows, the people on the committee, I worked on this on my own, talked to Plymouth and got quite a bit of information. And there they found that the fines for people over parking were about 1-to-1. In other words, if they brought in $10,000 from parking fees, they brought in another $10,000 from fines. I had talked to the chief about a year ago about this, and he thought it'd be a good idea. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he thought it'd be a good idea for his summer policemen, because they could go in terms of the money, getting the money out of it. And he seemed, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, he seemed at the time to think it was a good idea, because he could use some of his talent, if you will. I would think that they don't want to go around riding on bikes giving out tickets, but with that said, maybe we hire the equivalent of meter meetings or something of that sort. People who would ticket for a certain time of the year, that would be their job, they would be part-time.
Those are all operation issues.
But there's
The
a lot
first
of-
thing is how to get it in.
Get
there.
it
There's a
in.
lot of,
Yeah,
there's a
get
lot
it
of
in.
money in the fine.
There is a
Right.
lot
First
of
thing
money.
is how to get it in there, and then we would be able to see what the cash flows, where the revenues
Just
were.
two things, and this is actually, I remember you talking about the parking program, and actually, at one point saying something to the effect that it probably would cost us less than what we're seeing quotes for. And that goes back to what I'm saying, even if we do this, and it's not we, it's the town, because we really don't have that authority, it's really the town, but this is from one vendor, maybe through the RFP program, because this is over a certain dollar figure, you might be able to come up with a better deal. And I remember, and maybe to you, Mr. Paulson, I believe you actually at one point had talked about a firm or something that was actually cheaper than what we were looking at.
No, I don't get that from.
You know.
But I'd like to know, if I might just interject another question, part of the question. Why did this get taken out of the budget? Does anybody know? I'm sorry I was late, perhaps it was discussed.
Not yet.
We're not there yet.
Why are the capital items out of the budget? That'll be
Well,
discussed on
there's
Saturday.
other things in the budget that don't generate revenue. This generates revenue, was taken out.
That'll be discussed on Saturday. All right, all capital items were removed out of the budget,
Fair enough.
all right, for the reason of trying to run the town. Mr. Gray, we'll go back where we were 4 or 5 years ago.
Just, I think this is what other people are saying too, but I think this is a great idea, I'm all for it, but I think one thing that has to be done is to make sure that there's a complete plan for the project, because one thing we don't want to see is 35,000 go into it and something get halfway there, but you can't, doesn't have the systems to complete it. So somebody has to look at this and come up with a plan and say this is what's needed to complete it. But as far as the general idea and basis, I think it's great. I would certainly be all for it.
Mr. Brown?
I just have a question. You said it'll be discussed on Saturday.
Oh, as far as the removal of items from the budget, Saturday we're gonna
We'll
be
get there.
discussing, the budget. All right, and all these items will come up
Oh,
on.
Saturday we are? Okay.
Yes.
What time?
Oh, it's coming up.
It's
It's on the agenda. 9 o'clock Saturday in the
So,
selectmen's room.
we,
Let me get to it later.
so
Let's
we
finish this up.
can't
Looking
discuss
for the next step.
tonight. Why? Because we
I'm
can't,
off.
is that what you're saying? That there's no sense in discussing it now?
There's no sense in discussing it at this point, really, I don't think. I mean, we know that it's probably gonna be off, I think that's why the request went in to the CEC. All right, it'll be part of the conversations going forward over the next 2-3 weeks. I don't know what the process is to get this, where the approvals have to come, if it can be done. I think it's gone to the right person, it's going to Mr. Bowen first. All right, there's gonna be some legal issues that are gonna have to be clarified as to whether or not they're able to do it. to buy a capital item. There's the whole problem of, it's a capital item, all right? There's a process for that and the charter as well. I think it's an outstanding idea. The question is, how fast can it be expedited? Too bad we didn't think of it a year
Seems like you
ago.
got a committee that wants to get it
Before June
expedited.
2nd.
Pardon?
Before June 2nd.
Oh, you've got the right woman on the job for that, let me tell you that. She can move a mountain when she wants to.
I think, you know, the best we can say to you tonight is that that she does have our support, but it's not nothing that we particularly can do. When it comes to before us, I think we've said all along, we look very favorable on the whole parking program. The problem was
That's why it was taken out.
financing.
We look favorably on it.
Was to finance it. Mr. Paulson?
Isn't there, somebody has told me, somebody's have told me, there's a covenant on some of that land that's over in Onset that goes back maybe 50 or 60 years that would forbid doing, at least on that portion of the land, what is been suggested. Do you know anything about that, Susan?
All I know is about the 1916 decree, but that you can't do anything on the bluffs.
On the bluffs.
On the,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was gonna offer a legal interpretation.
Also, I think the, what is it, Shell Point?
right,
You can't charge
Right.
for parking.
you
and
can't on
stuff.
Shell Point.
Ms. Pickett?
Is that hard and
That's
fast?
that paved, that's that small paved parking
Yes.
lot.
We-
And at one
again, we
time,
talked
a number of
about
years
this.
ago, you know, because I've been very active since I moved down here 27 years ago. And at one time, there were plans to have parking underneath the bluffs, and it wasn't gonna happen. So, but the thing is, the fact, I'm happy to make, you know, copies and, you know, and get them to you, you know, Mr. Chairman, you know, so that the committee could review it, because I know Lieutenant John Walczak did a lot of research into this, and we, you know, I started to grill him.
Yes, maybe we could do this. Could you have those scanned when she brings them to the office and then email them to everybody?
The letter, yeah.
All right,
I'd be happy to give you, because I can get another one, I'd be happy to give you this copy.
all right, if you would, because what can happen is we
Right,
can have it
it's 'cause
scanned and
sooner-
email it to everybody right
Sooner than
away.
better, you know.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to pass
No,
that?
we can do that.
I'm very, very happy to do that. And any other information, I mean, if you want to have, you know, a copy of the, of course, this would be tough to, if you want to have a copy of the, I think I have another one. This was a slide, but for what community events can do as far as distribution of money.
That would be helpful.
You know, so what I can get the, I think I have it,
Care if your bylaws with you?
it's the general bylaws.
Right, perfect.
Thank you.
Didn't know I'd be so.
There you go, that's the answer.
And if there's anything else, I'm just a phone call away.
You have any money in your pocket?
No, I left my pocketbook at home because I thought I was gonna write out a check to make sure this would happen.
She's already heard.
I'm an easy, my husband said, you're an easy touch, if they don't do it, you'll say, I'll take care of it.
We do have to balance the budget.
I think,
But I'm working, but I think this is really a good way, and there's no reason why we can't do this ongoing, because if we're generating all of this, I mean,
Exactly.
Well, it benefits your committee as
Right.
well, so, yeah.
but I mean, the whole town, you know, we don't have to be greedy about it.
Exactly.
Sure.
You know, and on a side note, I gathered up somebody that I know can, you know, look for grants that she's doing for me for nothing, because I convinced her it was a good thing to do. So, hopefully we'll have a pocket full of change soon.
okay,
And I'd be happy to answer any questions at any time.
thank you for your information.
Yeah.
I'll get this information out to everybody. In the meantime, I'll talk to capital planning and I'll talk to the TA, and obviously he must know something about this, because it went to
A copy of the letter
the
went to
chief, and
him.
I'll make sure that it also has made it to Attorney Bowen,
Mm-hmm.
because I would like to make sure that we start
Right.
progress on this.
Right. It could be a timely thing if we could even get something underway, because I know
We won't
some,
know that until,
yeah,
and
right.
we don't even know what the authorizations would be.
but I like things done a week ago Thursday.
So we all would. Mr. Slavin, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, unfortunately, by charter, $25,000, capital item has at least a 5-year lifespan. It's gonna qualify as a capital item, which has to be approved at town meeting.
Again,
This-
we
do
can,
the
You're gonna have to
CEC?
get legal opinion as far
The
as what,
CEC would have to get approval by town meeting to spend the money.
to spend money on a capital item, not to
Still,
spend money on
town
events. But you're using, it's town money technically, you get it. You're buying a capital item with it. Charter says any capital item purchase has to be approved at town meeting.
which it does do. That's what I'm saying, we need some legal opinions here to
We
find
need
out
legal
what we
opinion.
can and can't do.
It's not that
Alright.
wrong to do, it's just what the charter
You know,
says.
there's some other, there's other possibilities too. Ms. Pickett, did you want to say something on this?
No, I think the moment has passed.
Your moment has passed. I apologize
That's
then.
okay.
I want to thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me come before you.
Very creative idea.
Okay, thank you.
We'll chase
Okay,
it.
right.
I'll chase it. Any other citizens' participation? Seeing none, we can move to the agenda.
I just heard about it now.
On the committee business, I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the following dates. It's a little administrative tonight, again, unfortunately, until we get discussing a lot of other items. Town meeting is on April 23rd, and means we need to receive the warrant on the 14th, which we did. One of the problems with the warrant copies that you have tonight, though, is the explanations aren't there. They're trying to pull those together and get them onto the document. Hopefully, they'll have them by Saturday. That's when I asked for them to try to make sure that they're there. Because some of the explanations have dollar amounts, et cetera, and it turned out to be a problem last night. But as the Board of Selectmen, we're going through it, and we'll try to cure that as fast as we can for you. All right, our recommendation write-ups are gonna have to be finalized by April 4th. I think we'll do the same thing that we did for the fall. We'll sign them out as, to parties who are interested in writing them up. All right, some will be quick, some will be a little more difficult. I also will make available to everybody the opportunity to do a minority review, or a minority report if you so wish. Okay, so I think that will probably come up on at least a couple of issues. All right, the final revisions and the warrant have to go to the printer on April 9th. And my understanding is they're gonna have a pre-town meeting on April 12th. But the 9th is our deadline so that we can get it out on time. We'll get it back from the printer when, Kelly?
We should get some by that Friday, which would be
That would be very helpful.
the 13th.
Right, but, so we won't have them for the 12th. But we'll have them in time to meet our 7-day schedule. And those are the absolute deadlines. The reason why I'm saying also that we have to be there by the 9th, and the final recommendation write-ups will be done by the 4th. Actually, on the 4th, we'll be dealing with the non-financial ones, which we don't have to do write-ups. All right, we only have 3 Wednesday nights to get all this done. I was a little shocked to see 51 articles. You haven't looked. I recommend you look.
I don't know, look. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but that's the way they broke down a lot of the budget articles too. I think that-
Yes, there were.
That
The
may-
articles for the budget are a little bit more numerous than they were previously. The school committee actually has 11 in there for their issues that are related to their capital items, et cetera. It's gonna be a little different, but I think some will be quick. There's a lot of housekeeping in here. Some are gonna be a little more emotional, I think. That's the best way of putting it. All right, so, but everybody, over the next couple of weeks, you're gonna get homework, so please, and it's gonna be important that you get it on time, because Kelly's gotta put it all together.
Do we know how many articles are in the warrant?
51.
51.
51.
51 articles.
Yeah, but, okay.
Bonding of community events, you're backing away from that, right?
It's not,
After all that praise you received tonight, you're gonna say, I don't know if I
Wow.
could do it anymore?
well, you see, I just opened my mouth and things came out and it was just like, whatever. As I explained briefly, because of my new position with the Elks, I have a scheduling conflict where they meet every second and fourth Monday of the month. And CEC meets every second Monday of the month, okay? Now, Susan says there might be a possibility of them changing the CEC meeting. If that's not possible, then I will need somebody else to fill that seat.
All right, so you want me to postpone it for the time being?
Postpone it.
Okay.
I mean, I may not make the next meeting, I'm not really sure. But she's gonna talk to the other committee members about maybe possibly moving to the third Monday, and if that works, then it will fit in my schedule and I can continue to do that.
Okay, rather than make a change now, why don't we give it a couple of weeks to see what happens?
For later.
All right, we're gonna meet next week too, so if you,
Okay.
the situation develops and you see that you're not gonna be able to do it, you just let me know. The school building committee appointment,
Go ahead, do what you have to do. There's no hard feelings here.
I'm going to assume that position. It's basically something that could run 3 to 4 years. It starts tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, I guess, only in the sense of a conference call. It's pretty extensive, and we're actually going in on the financial side of it. That's what's happening. There was actually 14, 15 members, which has been whittled down to about 10 because some positions were duplicates. Right? The state's been very specific as to who they want and what type of expertise they want on the committee. A very interesting note was made last night. There are no members of the Board of Selectmen currently on that committee,
They're gonna
as requested by the state.
Are they waiting for the election or something?
No, the committee does not have any selectmen on it.
Oh, the committee doesn't include us?
No,
Okay,
the
I'm
state
sorry.
does not require any selectmen
Okay.
on it. All the other positions are pretty much defined by the state.
Okay.
All right, and the qualifications are defined by the state. All right, committee vacancies and applications. We will have at least 3 members coming up for renewal, all right? Mr. Camerano, Mr. Catuli, and Mr. Paulson. And then Ms. Pickett, you said your life is going to get too exciting and you're moving to Carver?
Yeah, I'm getting married in August, and thank you, and we built a house in Carver, so in August I'll be moving, so I'll be able to be home.
Okay, generally we would advertise our vacancies in, I believe, next 30 days as required
Mhm.
by basically the procedures that are used to find new members. Renewals, I did go to the town hall and check with the selectman's office. You've served a 2 and a 3. And Bonnie, you've served a 2 and a 3. And Mr. Paulson has served a 2 and a 3. So based on the town charter, which says that you cannot renew if you've had 2 consecutive full terms, all right, you're eligible. So if you wish to, reapply, please feel free.
Because our first term wasn't a full.
Your first term wasn't a full term, right?
So we can renew again.
You
Okay.
can renew again. It's 2 consecutive full terms according to the charter.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clear all that up. And I also encourage any members of the public, that leaves us with 1 additional position, any members of the public who would like to apply, please do. We'd like to have a full crew. Pardon?
Through you, Frank, as far as applications, do you have any, do we have to fill out an application to renew, or
No.
just, no?
No.
It's,
State clerk.
Yeah,
you know what, I forget the
me
procedure
check.
last time. I
It's through
forgot
Frank.
the
I think
procedure for it.
It's through you, the appointments come up and you
just
yeah,
express to Claire
Yeah.
who's interested.
yeah, exactly. All you do is tell Frank and
Right,
he'll
you
bring it up
can
for a vote for a reappointment, that's all.
Right.
Okay, baby, sign me up. One more time.
Oh, yeah.
I also have your original application, if you want me to use that.
I mean, you know what,
No problem, I'll do that, that's not a problem. I'll check with Claire. I think she's right.
what I would just like to say is, I mean, I would be glad to, do it again as long as the, committee members think that, I have some decent input, I'll be glad to do it again.
Oh, you're looking for slap or praise.
Yeah.
What are you looking
What's
for?
going on here?
You guys think I'm a piece of junk, you
Now
know,
that-
I will serve again, I
Okay.
enjoy it.
Now that you've announced your permanent retirement,
Okay,
I kind of
they're
like
not-
arguing with
they-
you.
they-
thank you, okay.
no, I'm sorry, they won't compliment you.
No.
All right, in your packet tonight, I also took the articles and sorted them out, basically, for what we should cover in each meeting. There's some that we could do tonight. Basically, it comes down to the 21st would really be our budget meeting, and that will occur after the Saturday meeting. Let me refer to the Saturday meeting. We were supposedly trying to try last Thursday to get together with the selectmen and the school committee. I want to go over that again. What has happened, though, the selectmen have committed, 4 of them have been able to commit to meet with us on Saturday at 9 o'clock. The school committee is unable to get a quorum because of really commitments that the 3 of their members can't get out of. All right, there's just no way. But however, the chairman of the school committee, the superintendent, all right, and the head of their budget committee can make Saturday.
Good.
All right, and
Good.
right, they could make it. Originally, I said we would, I would poll the committee to see if you wanted to meet with them on Saturday to discuss everything but the school, because the school wasn't there. All right. The other side is we've said we'll meet with anybody, anytime, any place, to try to go through this stuff. And the school committee is welcoming the opportunity to come in and go through, again, the presentation of what it's going to cost and discuss it with the selectmen. So my question really to everybody is do we wish to attend that Saturday meeting
Sure.
at 9 in the morning?
Want to make a
We
motion?
need a motion.
There's your motion. Will
I'll
Tim?
You'll second? All in
Second.
favor? All discussion?
Where is this, now, where?
It will be in the selectmen's room down
Okay.
upstairs.
And the date,
Tomorrow.
This Saturday,
this Saturday.
the 17th, St. Patrick's Day,
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
National holiday
noon.
for me.
I got
I'll be
this.
out. I will be in town, so I won't be able to go to that.
All right,
You gotta have a quorum.
we have a quorum. Well,
Yeah,
just
I
based
don't
on
know
what
that
you
yet.
said. Well, I just have 5
1,
people that just said
2,
yes.
Well, no,
3.
I'm not sure I can make it, Frank.
You gotta work. Sure.
Yeah, I gotta work, I gotta see, as long as there's enough people that work. I have to get back to you. I'm not positive I can go.
All right, well, there's still 5 of us, and they can check with Dick.
Okay. Motion.
Sam?
What about Dave Fidel?
No, I'm in.
Days away. I don't think
Dave's in
about-
California.
Dave's in California.
It's back tomorrow.
What was that?
I'll check with
He'll
him.
probably show up.
Oh, it'll be back tomorrow.
So he might be with us.
Well, there's 5 of us there, I'm sorry, there's 5 of us that said we could make it, that would be a quorum, I'll check with Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So 3-7-0. All right, back to this schedule, I said on the 21st, we would have the town administrator in. Basically, the 28th, I'm looking at having the school department in, the Upper Cape, pardon?
The meeting, the agenda is.
Look at the dates.
We're on this phone,
On this one,
just
Barb.
going through the dates.
What I did
Oh,
is-
I see, I was wondering what those numbers were for.
I did a little prep, I went through and took all the articles and identified whether they were related to the budget, related to the school, or related to non-financial matters.
Gotcha,
And sorted them out so we could try to approach them
okay.
systematically and try to move things right along. All right, as I said, the 21st would basically be the TA and the budget, he's already been scheduled. The 28th would basically be everything related to the schools, including any debt exclusions, there's some revolving account things that have to be handled with them. All right, and I'm also looking at CPC, CPC is on the 21st. All right, because that's the only time they can meet with us. The Spinny's on the 28th, because that's the date they said they could make. And there's a couple items on the water pollution control. So that'll be a busy night, but it's gonna be pretty much focused on the schools. At that point, we should have, yes.
Because the last articles, the ones on 4.4 are gonna bump up obviously against the write-up. These are the non-financial articles.
Those are the
correct?
non-financial articles, right, that's why they're all at the back end.
So we're not gonna write a recommendation.
No, all we have to
anything
do is
that-
vote on them. We'll have to hear,
Okay.
vote, Kelly can take the votes, put them in, it can go to the printer.
Okay.
All right, because there's none of these that are really, none of that grouping that is financially related, so we don't have to write anything up.
Well, if some of this stuff goes through, it will be financially impact on people.
It might impact people, but it's not gonna financially impact our revenues or expenditures on the budget sides. It could, I understand what you're saying, it could, you know, we've talked about this before, where you say everything touches on
Yeah.
the money. It's like, it was the old bacon game, where you try to get the Kevin Bacon within X number of moves, 7 degrees or something.
Mm.
And the same thing here, we can talk about your earth removal is 25 cents a ton. Well, how many tons are gonna be moved in a year? You know, we could spend a lot of time on it, but
Well, the nitrogen article is a huge one too.
again, it relates to the cost of what individuals would have to pay and what it could impact, you know, their real estate values, et cetera, but it doesn't affect their tax base until we go through an assessment. It's like, you know, we can expand it to get into those, but if you wanna write the recommendations,
I will. I'll write it for this one.
all right, I will leave that road open. The only thing is it has to be done that night. Or you can do it in. We can talk about it.
Yeah,
That's
I'd
the
like to do
key.
something on the nitrogen.
The problem is,
Oh, because I'm passionate about it.
if I may, the problem is we have to get through this as quickly as we can. Things are pretty tight, all right? I also told you about the FinCom status. The budget update I do have for you tonight. This will be what we'll be looking at.
Throwing stuff at us.
Yeah, throwing stuff at you. This is what we'll be looking at on Saturday.
Is that the thing you gave us the other day?
No, this is different.
This is different?
This is different.
Did they mark
Really?
those, did they put a number at the top that's, this is third generation, whatever?
I mean, I think I took one too many, I did.
You'll notice down the bottom in the left-hand corner says 3/14/2012. In the right-hand corner says produced by D. Sullivan for discussion purposes only.
Everybody got a copy?
Okay?
Discussion only, yeah. I see.
Right. It's clearly marked on the first page. It's marked on every page.
I see.
Okay? The most important thing is the two columns to the far right. All right? The one on the very far right is where the budget currently sits. Okay? And the main difference occurs in the school department. That's where a lot of the conversations will be held. That's where it is today with all their negotiations. Those are the two variances, I'm sorry. And then the two middle columns are the administration's budget, and then the school committee's budget scenario, as he's labeled it. The budget scenario one is a problem though, because that's the one that has the 27 million in it.
Where are we?
On page 5 of 6.
Yeah, that's when you get to the school, you get.
Right, it's the school budget, that's the budget that basically was presented to go into the town warrant. Right, the column to the left of that is where it stands as of today. Is that clear to everybody? Right, again, is everybody clear? On the numbers columns, from the left, the third column is where the budget is today.
Right.
All right, the next column is what the budget is using the school budget of 27 million versus using the town administrator's budget of 25 million.
So they haven't
And the
come up
far
with-
two right columns are the variances for each of those.
I thought there was a change in that number from the last reiteration of this. But
There is a change.
that's the exact same number that was in the 3.8
For which one?
for the school.
The school, yes, the school budget scenario, it's on page 5. The school budget scenario is their 27 million. That is the budget that was presented, all right, as of 8/15 with the school number based on their approval. What they approved in their meeting. That is the official budget. Negotiations have been ongoing, and the negotiations lead us to column 3. All right, and they're basically
Three from the left.
3 from the left. That's where the negotiations stand today.
The administration 213 budget, that's.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? The main difference between the two is that school number. That's where the big difference is.
The 2 million difference.
2,000,000,
2.273.
2.0489.
And 2 point what?
2 million, it's on the back page.
Oh, okay.
Well, the school is 2,048,000. That has been brought down to $224,973. All right?
I'll take it.
Between where we stand today, all right, is for the school and where we stand with the budget for the administration. Look over the numbers. The column 3 will be the column that we'll be discussing on Saturday. The 2 columns on the right are to give you just the variances. And they're clearly labeled on top.
Excuse me, just so I can understand. The negotiations have resulted in the only difference being $224,000 in the school? Is that what you said? I don't believe so.
The 224, what they're looking for, that is if they level fund the school.
Oh, okay.
It's the admin budget using level funding for the schools. The column to the right is the budget using the school recommended.
I see.
Level fund to the 26.7. All right, they need an additional 224.
Oh, I see, between the FY12 budget and the 13, it's really the,
Yes. And what they're shooting for right now is to get to the 26,732, which was last year's number, level funding. That will mean significant layoffs in both administration and teaching staff across the board. And that's what we'll also hear on Saturday as well. All right, so why don't you give you the document so we wouldn't go through Saturday morning, which we're going through right now. Okay, so you have a chance to look at it. I encourage you, take a look at it, see what questions you have. All right, take a look at things that you may or may not agree with, you may want to raise questions on. The thing is I wanted to make sure you had at least 48 to 72 hours before somebody put a piece of paper in your hand and said, well, what do you think? And you're trying to figure out and listen at the same time.
What's the two?
Tom?
Who put this together, Frank?
This was put together by the town administrator's office. It was put together by Derek.
Okay, that's all.
All right, it is labeled in the bottom right-hand corner, by the way. All right, this, by the way, is not the official budget in any way. This is a work paper. That's why it says for discussion purposes
Okay.
only.
I just wanted to know who put it together, that's all.
Yeah, no, Don put it together.
let's
Derek put it together.
13 and 12. See if you take that 12 budget and the 13 budget, those two numbers there, actually a number there,
All right, they're labeled pretty clear on the top.
laid out by a financial analyst, you can tell.
Capital planning update, what I heard this afternoon is there are no capital planning items in the budget. That'll be discussed on Saturday as well. It basically comes down to what we can afford. Temporarily, all capital items have been taken out,
Even the defibrillators?
even the defibrillators. The revenue update, there were some small changes from the money and growth. Other than that, the numbers are pretty much the same. Again, I recommend that you review all those. There's nothing big in there because it doesn't include any exclusions, overrides, or anything else like that. All right, before I move on to the liaison reports, though, if you have your warrant, which was given to you.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
for the budget? Just throw it out there, somebody can remind me later that I asked this. Because of the local meals tax and whatever legislation we're trying to push through on this in regards to capital items?
The legislation hasn't gone through.
I
so-
understand that, but he's using that as a revenue source as general, according to his worksheet. So what happens when it goes through the legislation and then it becomes excluded? Just laying that out there.
So I guess we have to figure out what's
Okay.
going to get cut to do
Just
that, right?
laying it out there.
Because we were specific about 2013.
Yes, Ron.
Saturday morning.
Gotcha.
I can't answer the question. I can't answer the
No,
questions
good.
for you. Saturday morning. All
Okay.
right, if we can go to Article 4, all right, is to act upon the reports of the selectmen and school committee as required by statute and upon any other reports from officers and committees who consider it expedient to do so. All right, there was no write-up on that. Basically, is whatever report usually comes out of the capital planning, usually it's our report, and generally the selectmen and the school committee don't have much. There's no recommendation. I don't think we need to vote on that one, do we? I would say I'll wait till the 4th, and we can all vote on that to say whether or not we'll accept the reports.
I'm sorry, where are we from?
Article 4. It's just a housekeeping article that's in there every year.
I think she just.
It allows you, basically what happens is at the very start of the meeting, she'll ask if there's any reports. That's where our letter comes out, that's where the capital planning committee makes its report. And I really don't remember the selectmen and the school committee making any reports, although the school committee may make one.
I thought the Board of Selectmen, not last year, but previously had done, the chairman of the selectmen did a report in the town meeting warrant as well at one point.
Well, if it is, it's part of, it would be done before this article came up. All right, Article 2 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and town administrator to apply for, accept, or enter into contracts from time to time for the expenditure of any funds allowed or otherwise available to Wareham by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or the U.S. government under any state or federal grant program or activity to do or act in any manner. It's a housekeeping article. It comes up every year. It's what it basically does. This will allow us to use any monies that we qualify for between the state and the federal government, and also any state or federal aid that's sent to us. All right, I need a, yes?
Are we going to discuss this?
I need a vote for favorable action.
I'll move favorable action.
I'll
Second.
for discussion.
Second for discussion.
Ready?
Yes.
I have a real problem with the way this is written. This is one that gets us in trouble every year, and I'm starting to understand it. First, I thought it was a housekeeping article as well. But there's this little phrase in there that says, authorize the Board of Selectmen and/or town administrator. I have a problem with that. The reason I have a problem with it is that is how we ended up in the past, entering into some of the contracts where we had to come back to town meeting and police cars, things that I think we need to make this a little less broad. Because right now it says the town administrator can enter into a contract too as well. And I don't want to limit his power, but I want to limit it to the point where we're not going to have to worry about capital items being bought without going through the proper channels. And I don't know the best way to handle this. Well, I do know the best way.
Well, the first thing you have to recognize is the town administrator is the chief procurement officer. So that's, that's one of the reasons why it reads this way. It is the town administrator's duty. So this gives him the ability to do those contracts, et cetera. Otherwise, everything has to go through the Board of Selectmen. Everything has to go through the Board of Selectmen. Even the Kate will handcuff them, something horrible.
Yeah.
That's a killer.
Right.
This one's going to be argued on town floor by someone. I can guarantee you that.
Well, it
Well,
can, but,
it doesn't matter.
if I can also, these articles is the ones that appear in the housekeeping center have been by our legal counsel, and this is the recommended warning. Okay? Donna?
And correct me if I'm not correct in this assessment, he can enter into the contract, but as what happened on town meeting, I mean, we could have not voted to do those police cruises, and he'd have been in a world of perhaps finding the money somewhere else to fix it, so you still at the town meeting have to go before.
And he's also supposed to spend the monies according to Mass General Law
Right.
30B. Now, again, we are not the enforcement arm here.
I know.
That's the selectmen's arm. That's the selectmen's job. If he doesn't do that, and it's also this, if there's an adequate number of complaints to the Attorney General's office, and the IG will send somebody. I know, but I think you handcuff him way too much.
Yeah, there's no check and balances either.
You could use a copier.
Am I reading this correctly, that this only is in case that funds become available from state or federal grants or other such?
State aid, et cetera. It's to spend
So
the
it's-
state and federal monies.
It basically, it is not out of our budget.
Correct.
That is our budget.
It is part of our budget.
Well,
It's the
but,
state aid portions, et cetera.
okay, but offset by state or federal funds.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There's 8 of us now.
What was that, 800?
800.
Are we voting all the articles as if they're favorable, so that way,
Yes.
oh boy.
All right.
Always do.
Article number 3 is to see whether the town will authorize the town treasurer collector to enter into compensating balance agreement or agreements for fiscal year 2011 pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 53F of the general laws, or do an act in any manner relative to. This is what gives the treasurer the authority to do his job.
For 2011?
Well, I guess it should be 2013, right?
Yeah.
Typo.
So any motion that we make will have to be contingent upon correction of the article to read 2013. So
Second.
moved, and second.
Second,
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 800. The motion, do you have a motion? Clear, the motion is favorable action
Yes,
contingent upon
contingent
the
upon.
correction of the physical year. I can't believe
We didn't vote on that Article 4, Mr. Chairman.
No, Article 4 is to accept the reports.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what the reports are at this point. We'll talk to most everybody before we do something later. Article 8 establishes the stabilization fund. It doesn't establish it, it's a
Yeah.
contribution of an additional $150,000, which we've been slowly building.
So moved.
So moved, second.
second,
All right, discussion? I would point out to you that the 150 is important because we are talking about the possibility of bonding the school. So the stabilization fund becomes critically important when it comes to coming up with the interest rate on the bonds. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 800. Or, I'm sorry, abstentions? Mine going to do something wrong, right?
No.
I figured that was coming. Article number 9 was to see if the town will vote and raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds, the operating budget, $100,000 to the collective bargaining reserve account and to act in any manner relative thereto. And a motion for favorable action?
So moved for discussion?
Well,
No, that's me. I'll second it for discussion.
Second for discussion. Discussion? First off, I wish there were explanations here too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There are ongoing negotiations for various contracts. When the contracts are settled, all right, no payment can be made to settle the contract unless it's been appropriated. All right, this money sits out there, it's been sitting out there for every town meeting I think I've attended, whatever, so that they can do that. Sometimes that number's been in the 250,000 range. It's down now to 100,000 to make sure that it's out there. And there are contracts under negotiation at this point. All right, and this allows them, if they settle one, to go ahead and make a payment. Could there be more that need to be settled later? They would be taken up at the fall meeting. All right, if, after these were paid out, you would replenish this 100,000. Sam?
who decides whether the 100,000 is the right figure? Because we're absolutely blind on this, or at least I feel I am.
It's basically what the town administrator is recommending right now,
So
based
it's
on
the
how he
bid.
feels something may or may not be settled. And that's the other side too, is right now it's out there as a reserve, but that does not guarantee anything will be settled before the fall meeting.
Okay.
The second side of this, just so I understand the process, this goes into a reserve until the contract is negotiated and settled. At that point, it still has to come back to town meeting in
Yes.
order to be funded from the reserve fund.
Yes.
That's
So
right.
no matter, we're putting money out there in reserve. If by the end of 2013, FY 2013, it's not settled, this money rolls over into free cash.
Yes.
All right, just so everybody understands the process, because now I do finally, thank you.
The one thing that is important about putting it in there now is also the fact that, come fall, we may not have another 100,000 to put in there.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, let's get an amount in there now that, will temporarily cover that amount. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, nay, one, me.
Abstentions? 710. Number 16.
60.
Is that the 15? Not the 14.
Is it wrong to, even though we voted, can we still discuss something?
Nope.
We're gonna have for reconsideration.
No, go ahead, what was your question?
No, I was just, if I might, I wanna know, what's the reasoning, is there something I'm missing here that,
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
that's, it's just
For-
information.
I voted.
No, I understood, I didn't know if there was any reasoning that I'm missing.
There's reasoning, but I could.
Well, no, there's a difference between discussing and questioning a member's vote, okay?
All right, never mind, I'm sorry.
Grab them afterwards in the parking lot.
No problem, I'm just, no, that's okay. Thank you.
Article 16 was to see if the town meeting will vote to raise and appropriate to transfer 30,000 from the parking meter fund or the parking pier fund to the municipal maintenance department's signed materials account, or to do and act in any manner relative thereto.
He's going by this.
Motion.
16.
Motion for favorable action.
Second.
I'm going to question my own self about having that on there tonight. I think we need to know more detail on that. I'd ask you to withdraw your motion. I'll move that to the
First
21st.
to withdraw our second first.
Withdraw the second, please.
I don't feel
I don't feel like we're talking
Okay.
about motion.
good. Okay, I will. I withdraw my second.
This is standard housekeeping, remember?
I apologize once I read that. I thought
I got a question.
probably another one that should have been there. Article 17 is to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer 30,000 from the waterways improvement and maintenance fund to the harbors
You might want to hold that one too.
and beaches maintenance, which is typically done every year. I'm sorry?
I need to catch up, I'm sorry.
If you're gonna hold that one, I think you need to hold both of them because it's a similar thing.
No, it's not so. That one particular one has to be done so that they can do the beach maintenance. It's done every year.
Yeah.
I can hold it if you want. You want to make a motion to table it? You want to hold it? Does everybody want to hold it, or do you want
I
to?
have no problem, that's something that's done all the time.
I have a question. Aren't these funds earmarked only for this type of?
Yes, but you have to make the actual.
Yes, I know, but it's not coming out of our general funds.
No,
No.
no. The Waterways Improvement and Maintenance Fund has specific uses,
Of which this is one.
of which this is one.
Oh, okay.
These have been in there every year.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
So-
You need a motion for favorable action?
So move.
All right, second.
Second.
Wait a second.
Is there a limit to the number of seconds a person? can
No.
Discussion? Any discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 800. Article number 30. To see if the town will vote to authorize the transfer of $25,000 and no cents from receipts reserved for appropriation community events funds drawn from 70% of the hotel motel tax and 40% from the parking meter fund For the community events special revenue account, funds will solely be used for the continuing support and assistance of community events, projects, activities, services, programs, and public improvements which are of mutual interest to the residents and visitors of the town, or to do and act in any manner relative thereto. And a motion for favorable action?
So moved.
Mr. Brunk, second.
Second.
Mr. Camerano?
Question?
Mr. Gray?
I'm just wondering whether these are funds that would be used for what was discussed earlier this evening.
Yes.
Yes.
It's actually, right, this, what this does is the money's been collected, now we need to transfer it to the committee, so that it
And
can
it goes
spend the
from
funds.
there into the,
There into wherever it's
thank you
gonna
very
go.
much.
Right. Right now, it's just sitting in an account as a revenue, and with no, and it can't be spent. Any other questions? Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 800. Article number 31 is to see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $99,234.00 to pay for, there's a correction here, it's the third year
Third year?
of a 3-year lease for 8 police cruisers and 1 police SUV, and to authorize the town administrator to expend such funds that are necessary for this action, or to do an act in any relative manner thereto. It was a mistake when they put it together. It's the original cruisers that we spent 99 for the last 2 years. This is the last year. Question came up last night at the Board of Selectmen, is there an option at the end, or what happens? The cruisers are ours.
Well, that's,
Capital lease for $1.
that's where I have a problem, because the beginning of this, I remember the conversation, there was a buyout at the end of these. It
The
wasn't
buyout
much.
is $1.
$1.
Okay, right.
$1.
So shouldn't this be for that plus the $3?
No, we're gonna let the chief take it out of his pocket, he didn't put the money in here. We're past the hat around.
I like everything done by the book, we know this.
We were gonna assess some property over on Maple Springs Road.
Right down the road from me, right?
I need a motion,
So
for
moved.
favorable action contingent upon the change of the words,
Second to
second to third.
So moved.
So move Mr. Gray, do I have a second? Mr. Camerano is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Be 710. Next one is Article 33. It sounds familiar. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $49,842.00 to pay for the second year of a 3-year lease for 3 police cruisers, and 1 unmarked Ford Taurus and 2 marked Dodge Chargers, and to authorize the town administrator to expend such funds that are necessary for this action, or to do and act in any manner relative thereto. Need a motion for favor? This is the other 3 that we approved last year.
Yeah. Is that what we approved last year?
We approved 50,000 last year.
Right, but that was in the vehicles we approved.
It's 3 cruisers. The question is the definition of a cruiser.
Okay.
Any vehicle equipped for, that's a matter of definition of a cruiser.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Gray, second.
Second.
And second, Ms. Cattouli. Discussion?
Do we know that the buyout is again $1 at the end of the third year?
My understanding is the same lease.
Same type of
Jamie, yeah.
I personally would like a little clarification from the capital plan, because I think this was an issue with these 3 cruisers, or whatever, the definition of what they were asking for a town meeting and what they actually got. So, you know, and again, we're just authorizing the money, but to me, it's a package deal.
All right, capital planning never authorized the 3 cruisers last time at all, right? And came up at town meeting, it was passed by town meeting. So they have no report on the 3 vehicles.
So maybe we need to ask somebody else. I'd like to go back and look at the original article, that in town meeting, now we'll go back and look at that. So I'll probably abstain.
Well, we can make a motion to table too, or we can just table it.
Well, it's up to you, but I would, the motion's already been made and seconded, but my
Doesn't
opinion
mean
is.
anything.
You can still make a motion to table.
If you want to further
I
just,
can't make a motion in the middle of your motion.
Yes, you can. You can make a motion to table.
I would like to table this until we review the article from last town meeting. Was it April town meting?
Is there a second?
Because this is the second year, so it would have to be from April, just to get a look at the article to see we're looking at the same thing.
I think they were identical.
Pardon me?
I think it was identical to
See, I
the
don't
first
think it
one.
was.
No. My recollection is that it was identical.
I'll make a motion to table.
You make
If the
a
other-
second, you second? We have a motion to table, and I have a second.
I'll second
All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
What was that? So I abstained, now he wants to. This is.
No, you can't abstain on your motion to
Well, no,
table.
I know. I was abstaining from the original motion.
6 to, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Bonnie, I didn't think that.
no, honey, don't feel like if you don't feel comfortable on voting on
6-0.
something right now,
I just-
and you want more information, then you just say so,
All right, well, I just did,
okay?
thank you.
We're really sticking along.
What was the vote?
602.
Table.
The table
Table.
Table.
until next meeting.
My original thought was that it's just.
Mm-hmm.
No more information on the original article,
All right,
right?
I'll pull that. I have the last year's warrant, and I'll pull it, and we'll take a look at it. And it may be nothing, but to me, it makes a difference if you're asking for the same thing. If you're not, then we gotta talk.
I don't think it specified the exact vehicles.
I don't think it's
It just said-
specified either.
It just specified three
Yeah,
vehicles.
Oh, I'm just trying to figure, you think that it only asked last time for 3 cruisers,
I don't
not these
think it
other
asked for-
vehicles?
I think that, well, there's 2 parts of this. Number one,
$50,000 a vehicle. Right?
well, my point is that if you're looking for 3 cruisers, that's one thing, but and what did we get? Do we have 2, one unmarked and 2 regular cruisers, or what did we actually get? I guess my point is that what we asked for last time, is that what we got? And why are we more specific this time than we were last time?
All right, we're gonna need a legal opinion, what a cruiser is.
I'm
Well,
so
your
sorry.
idea of cruiser has bubble lights on top, all right? The police departments don't always agree with it. Cruisers include anything that has any indication that causes a vehicle to stop.
Everybody's,
So you take a little red light, you stick it on top, that's a cruiser. That's what I'm saying, we just need a definition, we'll get a definition from
I'm
Mr.
with
Bell. Yes,
just being,
English is kind of my pet hobby,
yes.
and if you read this, the punctuation is confusing,
I know,
because,
there's supposed to be a comma after the word.
yeah, it should be, yeah.
Yeah, because
Is
when
it-
I first read it, I
It
thought
sounds
it
like
was,
6 vehicles.
yeah,
There should be a comma after the word chargers,
yeah.
okay?
Yes.
No, there should be a semicolon after 3 police cruisers. Are we paying for 3 cruisers, comma, 1 unmarked Ford Taurus, and 2 marked Dodge Chargers? This
That's
Yes.
incorrect.
sounds like 6.
That's incorrect.
You don't,
There should be a semicolon
Yeah.
or something that's identifying it, because it sounds like it's not 3, but it's 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just,
The way it reads.
parentheses.
I didn't mean to start all this trouble.
No, but you're right, that's,
so full of it.
that's,
You did.
Or maybe we did by 6.
you can do it.
Yeah, we did.
No, we didn't. We didn't buy 6.
Now it's his fault now.
If we could get 6 for the price of 3, yes.
All right, the punctuation has to be changed. I'll agree, the punctuation has to be changed. The best solution would be parentheses,
Yes,
Yeah.
okay?
yes.
All
Yes.
right. Except, never mind, I won't say it. Matter of finding things in the typewriter.
You can use big brackets if you like.
All right, that's all I have for tonight. As far as the articles are concerned, next week will be pretty much the budget discussion. As will Saturday. Hopefully, after Saturday, that will move along pretty quickly. I'm looking for my agenda.
What are we trying to do Saturday? Could you give us just a little insight into what we're doing?
Referee.
Well, we're not refereeing because there's only one opponent. The other person's not gonna be there, so what are we refereeing? This is my point.
No, wait a minute, yes, they're going to be there.
Well, they are gonna be there, but it's not a fair fight.
No, we're not, no.
Tag team five versus two.
We have a situation, when the December budget came out, all right, we were given a number by the town administrator which had not been authorized by the school committee.
Okay.
Technically, it should have been. They didn't vote on their budget until January 25th, I think it
I
was.
remember.
At that point, the number which we all received was 27 million and change. So that's the number that goes into the budget. All right, not the 25 that the town administrator put in there. By charter, it has to be the number approved by the schools. At that point, it generated over $2 million variance, close to $3 million. All right, now that budget basically was the one that was presented to us in December as what the administrators would like to have. All right, and it was sort of the school committee, when I went to the meeting, was them sort of digging their heels in and saying, hey, we're gonna put this in there because this is where we feel our day-to-day people feel this is where the budget should be. However, we recognize it probably won't be there. After looking at the town budget and recognizing they have to live in the budget, they've now come back and said that the best that they could do as far as continuing the school system would be to level fund with last year. Recognizing that is going to mean significant staff cuts at all levels of the staff. So now the conversation becomes really between the school committee and the board of selectmen. Do we wish to cut the schools to that degree? If we don't, how do we fund it? Now the school committee has put in an override article. For that to be put on the ballot, it has to be approved by the board of selectmen after having gone through town meeting. It could go through the town meeting and not be put on the ballot still by the board of selectmen.
That's correct.
There's also a question of, well, if that's the thing, if the selectmen are going to agree to it, do you really want to put it out there on the town meeting floor? So that's what we'll hear on Saturdays, where each side stands on that.
So,
We're there more as observers, we're not there now. The other question is right now, they are short $224,000 in funding, level funding, all right? And I think we're free to come back and raise questions of saying, you know, do we really need some, shall we say, cultural or recreational items? All right, I'm gonna pick on the lifeguards.
Lifeguards, yeah.
I'm gonna pick on the lifeguards, you know, I say that because, you know, do you want a safe water line with problems on the street in Onset, or do you want to solve the problems on the street? You know, so we can raise some questions on those types of things.
right.
All right, and I don't know what they'll do. They may say, sorry, that's our budget, all right? But the main reason for us being there Saturday is to hear the conversation firsthand, rather than hear it half here, half there, and then, you know, whatever somebody happens to write in a paper or on a blog or whatever else we use to do communications in the town. The idea is to hear everything firsthand, all right, and let them hear us firsthand.
Okay.
You
Well,
wanted to say something?
I believe, maybe this question's been answered in theory, but about 2 meetings ago, one of the members of this committee, which I think is a very bright guy, asked exactly what is minimum funding. I asked it 2 or 3 times, and I heard that it was 46% of the total budget for the town that was minimum funding.
I don't know where you received the information from.
Well, no, I think it was discussed maybe offhand, but we've never received, this is where I'm going.
Right.
We've never received an answer that says this is minimum funding, because I think that plays into this issue as well. What is that minimum funding that the school has to have?
They will have it on hand. It's a calculation that, they just can't give us off the top of their heads right now. They also have to look at their projected enrollment. He has said they will come in with their best estimate, not gospel. Because, there's always the possibility that we may see an increase in healthcare benefits, the actual premium cost. I don't think we have 100% information on that right now. I think we have an estimate, but the final funding always comes back in the end as, this is what it should have been.
We could be looking at three numbers, the town's numbers, the minimum funding, and the school's number. I mean, that's,
Yes.
there's
All right.
clouds it a little bit.
And I also encourage Dr. Rabinowitz to explain to everybody what happens if we don't
Right.
make the minimum funding at the end of the year when the calculation can be done, because it impacts the next year.
Yes.
Okay, it impacts the next year. So there'll be there will be discussion of that.
Okay.
And I think you're close to the 46%.
Okay. And it's sort of funny too, because I don't think the unemployment will come anywhere close to covering the health care, but it could be wrong.
Well, isn't it like for every 3 people you lay off, you gotta lay off another one that covers all the benefits? Something like that.
It gets tricky because
Yeah, different
are they
levels, yeah.
people with the benefits? Are
Right.
they family plans? Are they single?
Yeah.
Are they? There's a whole myriad of items that come into it, but he will bring that number.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right. Any liaison reports? Anyone have anything?
I can talk a little bit about what I found out from the assessor a couple of weeks ago.
All on the income basis for
For
tax?
Walmart,
Oh, yeah.
and what's in the process of happening.
Yes, please do. It was fascinating. Please.
Well, that's good. The assessor told me that Walmart is apparently going to come in and try to get a 20% reduction in their assessment. And looking into this further, apparently what Walmart has done on a national basis, and apparently with some degree of success, has gone and said to tax assessors, well, the things in the store are not personal property, therefore we can't be taxed on them. And she then sent me subsequently an article from the assessor in Watertown that had some numbers associated with it. Apparently Walmart wanted to build, or wants to build, a big new store, and the town people thought, well, gee, that'll be great, we got $500,000 a year from Walmart. The assessor had said initially to herself, I really never thought we'd get $500,000. I thought it might be $300,000, but if they prevail with this new argument, it will only be $100,000. So that's in Watertown, and I don't think that we're going to be looking at going down from 500 to 100,000. I don't know what the numbers would be, but Walmart is just the tip of the iceberg, because if Walmart prevails, Target,
Well,
Big Buy,
Best Buy.
Home Depot.
they're all going to come in, and they're all going to use the same argument.
Sure.
So my suggestion would be that we take a very close look at this, because if they all start to come in with lower and lower and lower revenues, that's got to be made up some way, and you're looking at the people who are going to have to make it up. I don't think we do the 2.5 either. We'll have to make it up.
Excuse me.
Mr. Gray?
May I ask for you, won't this end up in court? It sounds like
It has ended up in court, I guess, in other states.
it seems to me bound to end up in court in Massachusetts, because it's going to affect every town that has any retail stores.
To answer your question, I don't know where it stands or where it's gone in terms of a judge saying this is good or this is bad or you can do this, you can't do that. I'm sure you're correct, and it's probably in different courts throughout the country, but Walmart in particular has made a concerted effort to do something, and the something is to get their tax bill down. And it has implications for us.
Obviously, for them, it's a big figure.
Well, obviously, it is a big figure. So,
It has to do with, they were an LLC at one point, and they swapped over to being a corporation. When they did change their tax status. And it's different by state, right? There are some federal ramifications, but the big one is the state. And I don't know if the state of Massachusetts is gonna do anything.
I don't know.
It is a change from the Walmart family to the through the IPO, and they're saying, hey, we have all that money coming back to us. And wasn't she also saying too that our, like Wareham Crossing is based on, its assessment is based on its income generation, and that's been going down?
I don't know. Well, I know there was a special stipend that the developer had paid over a period of years, but that was a separate side deal. I don't know exactly how she or how the town assesses the properties over there. It's a good question, I just don't know.
I saw that agreement.
Yeah.
It's gone down, there's a lot of vacancies right now.
Well, yeah, and what do you do with vacancies?
I think that's where it was partially coming out. It sounds like a subject, that we should address right after the town meeting. Start talking about it.
I actually saw the agreement one time between, I believe, Wareham Crossing and the town, where they were basically paying, I think, and I don't wanna say 50,000 a year, but it was all to where it went. It was all laid out to where it went. At one point it went to this, one point it went to this, but I saw a contract with that.
Oh, this is different. Those are mitigation contracts. This has to do with how the assessed value is determined. It's done based on the income generation of the facility.
Okay.
That's how they assess it. And, okay, with the reserve, I thought I saw a table that said their amounts have been going down, and Target is treated separately from Wareham, and Crossing, and theirs also has gone down.
But I think for the assessor's office, they don't have to treat all of commercial property the same. They can enter into separate contracts with different properties to determine how they're assessed.
Are you asking or telling?
I'm asking.
We would have to ask the assessor. And that was in one of the statements that you sent us. I would say that we should probably ask her to come in and go through that with us, because I know one of the things we are doing today is we're assessing the commercial at the same rate that we're doing the residential. And if these issues are coming up, maybe we need to take a look at it and see what can and cannot be done. Now, the other side too is that they may have the shelter of all the small businesses in town. Whatever you do for us, you have to do the small business. That can be a problem as well. But I think it's worth spending some time to find out how this is being done, because it's not being done the same way that residential properties are being assessed.
One other thing, since I have such a fondness for the pension plan, I found out from Plymouth County their performance last year, 0.15%.
What?
0.15.
What was the,
And if nobody noticed it today, CalPERS, the biggest pension fund in the nation, just dropped their rate from 7 3/4, the expected rate of return from 7 3/4 to 7.5. We're still at 8 1/4. And I would remind everybody that if we stay there, every 25 basis point drop is $50,000 a year to this town. If we were to drop from 8 1/4 to 7.5, it would cost us $150,000. And on top of that, and aside from that, what I learned at the MMA was that the mortality charges are going to be changing in 2 years, and that's going to add another $50,000 a year to the total, and that's over and above what we already have. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Growth is not going to save us. We're going to have to start cutting.
What?
that's fine.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Sorry.
Told me he had a nice sweater on.
But can you imagine 0.15% and still sitting well? We're going to earn 8 1/4.
Just another thing when you're looking at.
Could you do me a favor, would you identify yourself so that they can pick it up?
Oh, Tony Scarciotti, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
One of the other things that I've looked at is this town is number 13 in the state for foreclosures. We have a lot of real estate that's not on the books. So we're not getting any revenue from that as well right now. So when you look at that, you've got some problems. you know, with getting
No.
revenue.
Yeah, but on a foreclosure, the bank still pays the taxes.
Yeah, yeah,
The
they,
bank's supposed to pay the
Now,
taxes.
they have to
they
pay the
have to pay it
taxes.
first.
No, they don't.
Well,
They don't have to pay it first. They wait until they sell the
When they
property.
sell it, they have to
Yeah.
pay.
But you
When
still
they
get
sell
it.
it, they have to pay it, but
If they
not
sell it.
until it
Right.
accrues.
Which is
If
what
they
the,
sell.
right, they'll accrue it.
They'll accrue it. They won't pay it right away, or like we do on a quarterly basis or
But
anything
you'll
like that.
they'll get penalties, it works.
Yeah, but it's
That,
it's
that gets into the whole tax lien area, and the discussion, so we remember we had someone come in and talk to us about tax liens. And, you know, the low-hanging fruit in the tax lien market is that if you go with them, as soon as the banks hear that it has been put out there, they usually pay right away. Unfortunately, by that point, he's getting some money out of it. Mr. Paulson?
Well, the other liaison chore I have is to talk to the town collector, and John Foster. It was John Foster and Elsa, and the three of us at breakfast, and this question came up. And in fact, some of the banks do in fact stall until the property's sold, and they will settle up. I didn't get into as much detail as I would have liked to, but I think what we might want to do, the committee might want to do, is get a really good sense of how many properties have been foreclosed, how much monies have come in, and or not come in, as the case may be, and exactly where we stand. Because one of the other issues, in my mind, and maybe Bonnie can speak to this perhaps better, is that what happens if the property isn't maintained? And then the people that live around that area are unhappy, and why should they again, this is my opinion, why should they have to suffer because somebody isn't taking care of a piece of property? And that's kind of an ephemeral thing. I am not sure that I'm correct in that. Maybe the properties are being maintained, but I kind of suspect they're not.
They're not.
Typically, if there's an issue where it's not being maintained to the point where it's like becoming like a health hazard, then the town brings suit against that property, and the bank, if the owner's not, the bank usually pays to fix up that
We
property.
have properties over on 12th Street that are just, they're holes in the ground. Actually, it'd be better if there were holes in the ground. They're just, that one building, it's been there for years, and the town owns it. And we haven't done nothing with it. And these people there, if you go talk and knock on doors, I did it a couple of years ago, they're very unhappy, and they should be unhappy. And there was money in this budget, by the way, now that I think about it, I think there was $50,000 that was gonna be used to take care of Gerald, to try to take care of Gerald properties, and that's.
$25,000 is in there.
If the town owns it now, then the
$25,000 is in the program already
It's still
in
in here.
place, and somebody has put an article in to raise that by an additional 30, so it'd be 55,000 for the demolition of properties.
I missed that.
Derelict properties. That'll come up for discussion on the last night.
My apologies.
Right, the other thing is that the people around those properties, last year, I forgot the figure, but I thought, actually abated their taxes because of, blight around them.
Yes, that can be done.
Right, and we've lost revenue that way. They abated, they said that has brought their value down, and so they abated their taxes, and most of them were granted that.
And then guess who has to make up the difference?
Right.
The rest of us. And I'm not saying it's not unfair
Right.
to those people, it's eminently fair, but we have to make it up. So at least it's something to perhaps look into later.
Okay. Any other liaison reports? I have no new business unless anybody has a surprise for me. Seeing none, need to approve the minutes from February 22nd. Motion?
Motion to approve the minutes as written for February 22nd, 2012.
Second?
Second.
Okay, second. Do we have any corrections and additions?
Wait, I'm looking. Somewhere. My daughter's doing a project on Nigeria, and I just found the paper.
hopefully that wasn't due.
Any additions, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 800.
Abstain.
I'm
I wasn't
sorry,
here.
you weren't here, sorry, 701. Minutes from February 29th. Motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Frank, second.
Second.
McDonald. Corrections, additions? Want to know who was here?
Yes.
I don't think I was.
Who was absent?
Mr. Paulson and Mr. Gray were absent, everyone else
That's what I
was here.
thought,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was here.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Four.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain.
600.
Was I here on the previous one, Kelly?
Yes.
Are we talking physical, or are we talking
I'd like to make a statement, I'd like Kelly to paint a nicer picture of me and her, but no, just.
I don't know what that was all about. Our next meeting will be
She'll
next,
give you her check account.
our next meeting is Saturday at 9 o'clock. We have 5, Dick, you weren't here, so I don't know if, I polled 5 people who can make it. Will you be able to make it Saturday morning? So, or we're pretty well set.
You may even have
Hopefully, yeah, I hope David will, he probably will go to that. And then Tommy said you were letting know, Renee, you're not gonna be able to make it.
Probably not, but I will try.
Okay. That'll be our next meeting, and then we will meet again over each of the next Wednesdays going into the time.
Motion to adjourn?
So move motion to adjourn, and seconded by Mr. Paulson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Never.
I wonder if anybody's ever been opposed.
Yeah, I asked
Yes,
that last
I
time.
find that out. People are opposed.
I seen it on select.
Meeting adjourned.
No, I'm